right, thank you for joining us here today. My name is Cody Johansson. My wife and I own and operate RainySunday Ranch here in Concrete, Washington. This is Cassette, and today we're going to talk to you a little bit about our hoof trimming day. We start out with some clippers, but today we're going to show you how we use a brand new tool to help us correct some of the problems that we've been noticing in our herd, specifically with some hoofs splaying out and some back hooves starting to roll over a little bit. So we're really excited to try this out here today. My wife picked it up at the local Home Depot. Buck Pro's 7-inch adjustable block plane. It's a wood planing tool. I'm going to show you quick what we're looking with here today. A nice adjustable plane. You can adjust the angle and you can adjust the depth. And today I'm going to be using nice sturdy leather gloves since it's my first time and I don't want to make a trip to the hospital because I was trying something new. So I'm going to set these aside out of the way and we'll get into trimming hooves. Alright, so we're looking at the back hooves currently, and just a quick note about how goat hooves grow and work and function to help them. You'll notice real quick here that these hoof walls have folded over the inside part of the hoof. This part inside is called the frog, and this outer part is the hoof wall, and it's a lot like your fingernail. And really you don't have to be squeamish or nervous about cutting and trimming goat hooves if you trim your own fingernails. We're basically working on the same concept here, okay? With the difference that we don't walk on our fingers like this, but the goat does. So we want to help their hoof as much as we can when we're trimming with the hoof trimmers to get a really nice, flat, even balanced surface on the bottom of their hoof so they can have an easy time walking around. And as this begins to grow, we want it to grow evenly so their hooves aren't being forced unevenly, giving their whole body a structure that's just not pleasing and just not helpful long term. So you can get a hoof pick, and a hoof pick is a tool that just has a little hook on it, and you can get out some of the crud that's underneath there. I find the end of the trimmers is perfectly fine for me. I want to make sure that it's locked, and I just get in there and just do a quick scrape of any crud that's jammed in there. Okay, and then as I'm cutting, what I want to be looking for are these lines on the hoof. Okay, those are my guidelines. And as I'm looking at the hoof, I notice that if I followed this line right here across, the front part of the hoof, the toe, has grown more than in the back. Okay, so I want to keep that in mind as I'm trimming and get as close to one of those lines across as I can, and that'll be the natural level position for the goat's hoof. Alright, well, I'm going to do my first cut here, and my first cut really is just to get all this extra foldy, flappy stuff off. Just like that. And you'll notice that it's still off an angle from those lines, and that's okay. I just need to get a better working surface to get started. So I'm going to do the other side as well. That way I can have a look here and see what I'm going to be working with today. Okay, real quick about the clippers, you'll notice that I can trim this way and get some of that hoof wall and a little bit of the frog off, or I can flip the trimmers over and I actually get a different cut. The blade is angled differently, and I'll be using that difference to help guide me as I'm trimming on her hoof here today. So you may see me switch from one side to the other. Okay? And so noticing how those cuts are different will help you fine-tune and craft your hoof trimming so that you can get even better. Okay? I don't claim to be a master here, but I've done it for 9 years and I found some things that do make it easier, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this hoof planer will help correct some of my mistakes that I tend to make. The one mistake I tend to make is I tend to, on this inside back hoof, I tend to cut it too much. And what it results in is this hoof rolling. So I'm hoping, as I get it trimmed down the way I want it, that hoof trimmer can help me kind of correct that. So I'm just going to take a little bit off of the outer hoof wall to get this inside part of the hoof. Okay? And I've just found sometimes switching it around lets me get at a different angle on the hoof. Okay? I'm going a little bit more on the toe, because remember when we saw the side of this hoof, we noticed that the toe was growing faster. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time and energy there. Okay, now that I've done some trimming around the toe, you're going to notice I've got a color change here, and this is called the frog of the goat's hoof. Now, the goat does nourish this really thick, think of it as like a thick callus. They do nourish it with a supply of blood, so if you cut it into it too deep, it will bleed and be uncomfortable for your goat. And so I want to be real careful about how much I'm taking off of that. And the way I notice it is if I give it a little bit of a poke and it's fairly squishy, it feels fairly dense, there's a suitable amount of frog left there. But sometimes as you make a cut into the frog, you can put your finger there and you can start to feel what almost feels like a thin spot. Okay, and then I know that's probably plenty that I'm going to be able to do with my trimmers. Okay, I'm going to look at the side here and see how far I've gotten. I see a line that's right across there, but I feel like I'm pretty close to the frog there. So these tools are not going to be as helpful for me, and I'm gonna leave it there for now. Let me trim up this other one here, and then we'll have a hoof ready to try our new tool with. Alright, you can see that I've switched now to my heavy-duty glove. And I also want to just make a quick comment on the position I like to be in for the animal's safety and for my safety. I like to be right beside the animal, and I like to have my arm just giving a little bit of pressure around the hips. That way she doesn't feel like she has to wiggle out one way or the other. I've got it pretty well supported. And I did a little bit of trimming up here on the frog. If you're familiar with trimming dog toenails or cat toenails, this is also the quick. And looks like I've gotten down there, but not too far to draw any blood, which is great. And if I look on the side of the hoof, I have the line coming across here, so I've got a little bit more on the toe. But ideally, I like to bring it right in line as it goes to the heel part of the hoof. So I'm going to give a try here. I set it on a really thin setting. The blade is slightly angled, so when I'm going over this hoof here, I want to be aware that the angle is going to be cutting more on one side than another. Okay, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to pinch these hooves together with my gloved hand. And I just want to see if I can make a cut across here that's going to even those out. She doesn't seem to mind this as much as she does the trimmers, so that's a good first impression. It looks like it's taking off some of the shavings, and you can see these hoof shavings, they are really thin. In fact, you can just about see through that. And I'm really liking what I'm seeing here. This is definitely more precise than I have been working with. I feel like it's more comfortable on our goat. And if I look on this inside one here, it does appear to be correcting my problem. And I'm curious now if I can get that toe issue solved there. So I'm gonna, rather than having it completely flat, I'm gonna just tilt it up just a little bit, see if I can get some of that toe. I want to make sure that I have this hoof pinched together really well so it's not gonna splay on her. Alright, so you notice I'm pretty close to my goal here of having a line that goes straight across using this, I'm going to call it a hoof planer because that's what I'm using it for. And I'm going to see if I can use this hoof planer to reach my goal of making this line perfectly straight all the way across. And real quick, you'll notice I'm not doing anything with the heel, okay? This first trim is just to get the structure of the hoof back into the straight line, parallel on both sides. And in future trimmings, maybe 2-3 weeks from now, then I'll be hoping to use the hoof plane across the entire hoof to get a complete line all the way across. When you do linear appraisal or you're in the show ring, one of the things judges often remark about is a goat's hoof shape being that of a parallelogram. And you can see it starting right here. And the closer that hoof is to a perfect parallelogram, just the better balance that doe will be and the more accurate their structure in the ring will be. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to let her get a quick break. Okay, now we're back at it. I feel pretty confident right now that we've at least fixed our problem of having this inside hoof. Usually gets trimmed too much, but with the hoof planer, I think we're able to correct that and get us onto a better footing with our hoof trimming program. So, first use, I definitely got some things to learn on how to use it. I think starting out with just a very, very fine amount that you're shaving off is better than trying to grab too much at once. Just keeping at a pretty regular hoof trimming interval, I think with this new tool we can help correct some of the issues that we've been having in our herd. So thank you for joining with me, and as proof I still have all my fingers here, so I think this is a success.